Welcome to the session on filling out the CMS 1500. As you can see, this is a sample document, so this cannot be submitted for claims in any way, shape, or form. It contains material that is completely made up. I'm going to show you where we got this information. This is a sample, again, of a super bill that might be used in a practice. Now, you'll note that the type is very small, and although we have all the pertinent information that we would need, it's very difficult to read. So I wanted to show you what a super bill might look like, and this would be where we would generally extract the billing information. From here, we're going to go back to our CMS 1500, and I'm going to use a slightly different method for the purposes of our discussion to be sure that we have the correct information. I've gone ahead and taken this information from what you see here and put it on a separate note so that we can see it a little more effectively. All right, what you'll see is that we've extracted the practice information, the patient information, and the encounter information to this little notepad here. Again, this is purely made up information, and we've put it this way for ease of viewing in this discussion. Generally, we would use the super bill, or if we're directly coding, we would code from the notes and then use the information in the patient account to populate the insurance data and so on. So we're going to leave our practice information alone for a moment and fill out what our first few lines should look like. Again, for the purposes of our discussion, we're using a completely made up insurer named Green Cross Green Shield, and here is their mailing address. Because this is a commercial plan, our block 1A is selected with a little X there for group health, and here is our insured's ID. And we notice that the insured's ID that we have from our ICD-10 super bill and the patient record is this number here, which is the same number here. Our patient information, Kirsten Milk, all of her address is here, and her phone number, which we took from patient record in our practice management system, including her date of birth and her gender. Now, this is kind of an important part. Block 6 here is the patient relationship to the insured. In our practice management system, it might read as relationship to guarantor. Essentially the same thing. So we've marked self here. What that allows us to do is to say insured name and insured address is same. Now, some payers will want this to read self, or they may want it filled out completely. And the electronic version of this pretty much populates on its own. But since we're filling out the form, and Green Cross told us they want same, we marked same in both of these locations. Now, block 8 is empty. Block 9 is only if there is another insurance. Okay, so to know that, we would go to down here, block 11, is there another health benefit plan? And according to our practice management system, this patient only has one insurance, and it's Green Cross Green Shield. So we would mark no here on block 11D, which means that 9 is empty as well. And we have not been told that this was an auto accident, a workers' comp accident, or any other general liability accident, so we've marked no in Block 10 for Parts A, B, and C. Blocks 12 and 13 are the assignment of benefits, which is to say that the patient is allowing us to be paid directly from Green Cross instead of receiving the check to her, and then we have to get the check from her. So that's assignment of benefits. Now, Green Cross doesn't require that we fill in 14 through 18, okay? Because we don't have a date of a current illness. In this case, we're just checking the patient's diabetes status. So we know that the current injury or illness, or in this case, last menstrual period used for pregnancy cases, would go in Block 14, but it doesn't apply, so we don't add anything in there. If there's an injury or some other reason to put a date in here, we would do that here. For disability or partial disability claims, we would use Block 16. Block 18 is hospitalization dates. Now, we use this when it is an inpatient case and our physician has gone to see the patient in the hospital. We know that this is an outpatient case, though, because the patient was seen in the office. So we leave this section blank. I'll come back to 17 in just a moment. Block 20 is really intended for use with HMOs and may become more popular in use with the advent of MACRA and different formations of value-based providership. But currently, it primarily applies to HMOs. And our Green Cross plan does not specifically require it. 22 is if you're resubmitting a claim. There are particular numbers that you need there, the original reference number, so on. But this is a primary claim, and it's the first time we're sending it in, so we don't need that here. If we needed a prior authorization number, it would go here. A prior authorization number is generally needed for specialties to be covered in an HMO. Primary care usually doesn't need a prior authorization number. And plans like PPOs and EPOs generally don't require them either. All right. Now, Block 17 would go right along with this prior auth if we needed one. If we had a patient referred to us from someone else, the referring provider or source would go here, and the NPI information would go here as well. This Block 17A is either for taxonomy or legacy identifiers, depending on what the particular payer says. 19 is additional claim information. This is generally left blank for now. Block 21 is where we put in our diagnosis codes, and right here our diagnosis indicator, whether it's ICD-9 or ICD-10. We're using ICD-10 because Green Cross is a health provider, so we're going to use ICD-10, so we mark it as ICD-10. There are some payers who are not covered entities under HIPAA and therefore are not required to use current code sets. These are payers like workers' comp, auto insurance payers, and liability payers. Because they're not healthcare coverage payers, they don't fall under HIPAA. And so they may ask you to use ICD-9 codes. Or if you're resubmitting a claim that is prior to 2013, you might also be using an ICD-9 code. All right, so what we've done is we've included our diagnosis code, which is this one here, which we derived from the super bill, which we saw earlier. We only have one diagnosis code, but we can actually add up to 12. They would each go on their own separate line, including the decimal point. So these are A through I, A, B, C, D, so on. We only have one, so we're putting it here, and that's our diabetes nonspecific code. All right, now block 24 is very important. This is where most of the billing information is entered, and from the extract of the encounter information. So we have the date of service, the from date, and the to date. Okay, this is when did service start and when did service stop. Generally in the office, it's the same day. If, however, you have home health or you have dialysis care or something that happens consecutive days over time, but you're doing the exact same thing, then you would put when the service started and when it ended. Okay, but in most cases, this is the same day. In most practice management systems, this defaults to the same day populating. This part B here, column B, is the place of service. You can find the place of service listings in the front of the CPT book. CMS has a listing for them. Most of the Medicare administrative contractors have a listing for them. Some publishers of ICD-9 and HCPCS books also put these in there. The place of service for the office is place of service 11. Okay, we don't have an emergency, so we leave this blank. We populate the procedure code, in this case an E&M code, which we have from here, right, which we took from our super bill. We only have the one diagnosis code, so the diagnosis pointer is the line on which that code sits. So we have, it sits on line A, so we put in the pointer of A. You can have multiple diagnoses matched to a single procedure, but since we only have one of each, there's only one pointer. The charges, which we have from here. The number of units, which we put in only one here because we only saw the patient one time. Then we have who did it. And this is the NPI number you'll see up here of the rendering provider, which is Dr. Goodock. Now, this provider should match this provider here. We've scrolled in a bit so you can see this more clearly. As I said, this doctor here should match this doctor here. All right, so this is the rendering provider. Block 25 is the federal tax ID number of the office or whoever it is that's getting paid, and you have to mark whether that's a social security number of an individual or the employer ID number. Think of this as the tax ID number for the business. Now, that's what we have here. The tax ID number matches the tax ID number here. Patient's account number we have right here. This is usually generated from the practice management system. Okay. Now, our provider in this box is participating with Green Cross Green Shield. So, we've marked yes for accept assignment. These two things should match. All right, then we have our total charges. This is just a sum of all of these lines. How much was paid? In this case, it's a copayment, which we have marked here, that it was in fact paid and how much it was. Block 30 is blank. 33 would be the doctor's signature. Sometimes this says signature on file, and that's dependent on many things, but usually it depends on what the payer says. Block 32 is the facility location information. So if something happened outside the office, for example, if the patient was seen in the hospital, you would want to put that information in here. Block 33 is where the check should go, and in this case, it is the same address as the regular practice where the patient was seen. So because these are the same address where we're sending the check and where the patient was seen, the facility information doesn't get populated. All right, and then this is the NPI number of the group where we want the check cut. Some payers will require a taxonomy number in here as well. So you can see that there's quite a lot of information that needs to be input to the CMS 1500 form, and most of it derives from our practice management system and can be found on the super bill. Once again, thank you for attending this class. I hope it has helped you, and please note the disclaimer that all of this information is bogus and cannot be used in any way, shape, or form for claim submission. Thank you and have a nice day.